Hey, Dan Passarelli here. Well, the S&P 500 was off about 0.4% today, down just a bit. But what I find interesting is that some of the stocks that I have been talking about recently in these daily videos and in the Wealth Building with Options Substack, some of the stocks that I've been talking about being pretty overvalued, well, they pulled back today as well, and they pulled back more than the market. Now that brings them closer to realistic value, but all the ones I'm about to mention are still pretty high as far as the valuation goes. Let's start out with the main one today, Palantir, symbol PLTR. So Palantir is down 7.77% on the close today. And that comes out of a story that is kind of a follow-up to some of the things that I've talked about in these daily videos and on the Wealth Building with Options Substack, that Palantir has signed some deals with the government. As I mentioned, and as you may yourself recall, one of the founders, a co-founder of Palantir, Peter Thiel, was a longtime backer of Vice President J.D. Vance, and he was actually in the first Trump administration as an advisor for a time until he pulled out. And he's been getting some really good deals. Now, one of the questions that has been raised is about privacy. What I mentioned about Palantir is what they do is they data mine and they get information on individuals, on you and on me. And they're really, really good at it. And so there have been some members of the government, both from the Republican side and the Democrat side, who have raised some questions about just how much information and whether it is an overstep on privacy. And it's kind of a big issue. And so that is why Palantir pulled back. So the question on how do we play it, I'm not a guy who cares about the political aspect of it, at least not as far as what we're talking about in these videos. That doesn't matter as far as trading goes. Let's talk about trading with it. How do we trade this? Well, what this really ends up being is it's a bet either way on will the people who are raising these questions get some headway and end up cutting some of these deals, which would mean Trump conceding, or does Trump just push it along and kind of bowl over the people who have questions on it? That's what this trade is. Now, what I would love to do is I would love to go and buy some straddles on it, but the volatility is a little bit high, I think, still for that. So we need to follow this story a little bit more. Now, some of the other stocks that I've talked about recently are OKTA, which pulled back. That one is slightly overvalued the way I see it, but it is in the S&P 400. It's a recent add. So there is that one. And then there is CRDO, which is really, really pretty overvalued. And that one pulled back 4.5% today. So what this does is this just brings them closer to a more realistic value, getting us primed to be able to maybe step in and sell some puts in there. Hope that helps. This is Dan Passarelli, Trade Smart.